Welcome to the Peace is Possible podcast, where healing meets truth and inner work becomes world work. I'm your host, Eva Dalak, life coach, international gender and conflict expert, and founder of Peace Activation. In this space, we dive deep into what it really means to live and lead with peace, beyond slogans, beyond performance. Each episode offers raw conversations, personal reflections, and practical tools to help you cultivate inner peace and create safer, more conscious space around you. If you believe peace is possible, not just globally, but right here in your body, in your relationships, you're in the right place. Subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast and visit peaceactivation.org to learn more. Welcome, Fabrice. I'm very excited to have you here with us for the Peace is Possible podcast.
So am I. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a bit about yourself, how your journey towards trauma and the beautiful gift that you have to offer.
Well, it started in the US, actually. I was born in France, and then when I was 20, I went to the US and started a therapy called the primal therapy, where hopefully, if it all goes well, you go back to childhood, even your birth, and sometimes even pre-birth. So that was quite amazing, quite cathartic. And I trained for 4 years there. And then it felt like something was missing. So I went into yoga when I was 23 and did all types of took all kinds of yoga class, and then became a teacher of Hatha yoga, and then body work as well. Like, I really wanted to understand the connection between the mind, which I had experienced, but it didn't feel complete, and then the body. And through entering the realm of the body, I found the spirit. I had some amazing epiphanies, and that's how my spiritual journey started when I was around 23, 24. It was amazing. Through yoga, through body work, through letting go of the emotions, basically, that are stuck in the fascia. The fascia is what bundles the muscles, and it can contract and it can open, and that's where the emotions lodge. So because most people are mental, very often they do not let go of the trauma that's lodged in the body. And so adding the breath to this is incredible.
Can you say more about what is trauma for you from your experience, and how can you identify a person is traumatized?
Trauma usually has to do with pain, a painful event, and that event, until it's processed, looked at, acknowledged first, will just come back for healing. So what I learned from a young age since that therapy in my 20s, in my very early 20s, at 20 years old, was that I need to be in touch with my emotions. And that meant to me letting go of the voice that said, do not cry. Crying is not for boys. And being able to be very vulnerable, and also feeling when the emotions come, or one emotion comes, and riding that wave, not letting go until I'm fully immersed into it. So I usually have to create, I would call it a sacred space, a space where I'm not going to be bothered, where no phone, and just stay with the emotion until the emotion is here. I don't have to identify the emotion. It's just an emotion. And so I'm with it, and I let it enter my body, and I let it, well, it's already in my body, I let it come out. So I became very good when I have a trigger to, for example, go in my room, put some pillows on my bed, and just, if it's anger, often it's anger, because anger covers hurt, covers pain, covers love. So by, let's say I'm angry, I beat up my pillow, and I just maybe cuss at the person that I'm angry with. The person is just there. to help me with that emotion that came back again. And then heat comes up, heat rises in my body, and that's the jewel. I need to continue with this, fake it until I make it. Heat rises, it breaks out of the cellular membrane, the cellular memory gets activated, and then it comes out. And then I find myself to be an adult that goes back into childhood with maybe the original trauma, or if it's not the original trauma, I've found myself in birth and even pre-birth state, which is quite amazing. And so because I've done that in therapy with a therapist in the back of me, so you don't identify and project on that person, then I've had the training to know how it goes. Yeah. And so I can do it by myself and like take myself to this all traumatic event. And then after being that vulnerable and the emotions coming out, then there's an adjustment. Like if there's a person that I've chosen to do this work with, that person needs not to talk to me, because there's so much chemical adjustment in my brain, in my heart, in my body, everywhere. Like it's coming out, it's readjusting, that it's better not to talk. You wait for the patient to talk in that moment. And maybe the trauma is not gone if it's a big trauma, but you're chipping at it little by little instead of being run by it my whole life. You know, that's how trauma, I find, is truly dealt with. Because very often I see people that use mantras to cover the trauma. Maybe there's some level of which it can work. Being positive and being grateful is wonderful. If the trauma remains, it's still going to steer my being. You know that, and I would add the inner child. And that's a very, very big piece of information for me, is that the inner child has been with me my whole life. And if I don't have a relationship with my inner child, making him feel safe, telling him that I'm here, that I'm present, it will steer. My life will be run by a 4-year-old, maybe. You know, my reactions because of my traumas and my non-relationship with my inner child. So it's very, very important to create a relationship with the inner child. Someone, I forgot her name. You like her too. A spiritual teacher, says that the inner child is the higher self.
Mm-hmm.
The very interesting. I'm sorry?
Caroline Mays?
No, somebody else. Yeah. Her name will come back. Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's very interesting to hear you decrypt the trauma, because emotions are energy in motions, and we tend to forget that trauma is energy that got stuck in the body. Mm-hmm. We have been like, trauma is such a buzzword right now that we kind of forget where it's coming from. And there's a lot of processing happening when we are not relating it to the body. We lose the thread, actually, that would allow this trauma to heal and move forward. Trauma has been weaponized, and we're seeing it right now in Palestine, Israel. And so I'm wondering, what, in your experience, this is the Peace is Possible podcast. I heard you say that trauma is the kind of the highway towards peace, trauma work. And I'm wondering, can you say more about that?
Well, peace to me is so multifaceted. If I'm feeling angry, if I'm very traumatized, I don't know how I'm going to find peace. I'll be triggered by a lot of things. I'll be maybe exhausted. And so I think the first step would be to recognize that I'm traumatized. And I would say that everybody in this world is traumatized. It's, I think at a world level, we can see that everybody is traumatized at different levels. Yeah. So the first step would be to recognize that I'm traumatized. And so look towards it and ask for help. Find what would work for me. Try to understand. There's so much information out there. And I would say, try to be informed, trauma informed, on what are the ways that I could help my traumas resurface in a healthy way. It's quite complex if one is in a traumatizing environment. Yet it becomes, I find, a commitment to self. It can be a commitment to self to live a better life. It can be a commitment to my family to be a better man, to be more present, because someone that's overtaken by traumas, who's going to trigger the trauma a lot? The family. Those are our soul contracts. We reincarnate to, my understanding is that we reincarnate to trigger those traumas. Our children will bring a lot of the triggers of those things. So it's very important that I make a commitment. First thing is to make a commitment to work on myself, and then I have to find ways. And that's what we offer with Peace Activation, is ways of dealing with the presence of trauma. And that is very important. The tools are many, in fact. I would say dance. So if we say that the trauma lives in the body, I would say movement is a great way to let go of trauma. Breathwork is incredible. It even bypasses the traumatic experience, because by breathing in certain ways, it triggers whatever needs to come out next. That's incredible. You know, some people use voice because the voice is a way to express, and sometimes we're very repressed due to old traumas. So there are many tools. In fact, going to nature can appease the trauma, because nature as a natural way of balancing, all that we see in nature, the fractals in nature balances our mind and appease our heart. And nature is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. When you say more on that, actually, I heard you several times say, go to nature and you will find your own nature. And that there has been such a disconnect in our society from nature. And there's a strong coming back to nature and living in the jungle and creating self-sustainable home off the grid, etc. But I feel like there's really a misunderstanding around how nature is part of us. It's not something that is separate. It's not something you go to. It's like you're part of nature.
Truly. One of the first things that I tell my clients is grounding is, we've been so disconnected from nature, and grounding, which is simply kicking off your shoes and going on the earth. Everybody's electromagnetic. That's just that's just how we are. We're electromagnetic, and the earth is the reset button. So people can get depressed, people will get sick, uneasy, irritable, because they're not the electromagnetic field, the electromagnetic self. The whole body is under so much pressure from not being reset by the earth. And so, interestingly enough, because most people do not do that, a lot of people do not do that. So it's coming back. People are starting to understand the importance of grounding, and that means like twice a day, 5 to 10 minutes, be on the ground. Whether it's sitting or nature's calling, whether it's sitting or it's with your feet. Tai Chi, Qigong is all about connecting with nature and your own, and circulating the energy, in ourselves. The blood will be more fluid, less heart disease, and then when we see, like in the city, a lot of square unanimated objects, we then deprive ourselves of the fractals, the natural fractals that we see in nature, which realign our being, realign our mind, realign our heart, realign the entire being. So those things are essential. And then the oxygen, and then the softness of nature. Those are the basic things I would say. That's why I would say, go into nature and you will find your own.
Mm-hmm. Would you apply that in a conflict zone, in the heat, in the fire? When nature is also very often abused in such places.
Yeah, that's the conflict zones and the wars are like the most challenging place to heal. The souls I feel like the souls are brought to this place to be tested to the maximum. And so I would still do the same type of exercise. If I was a dad, let's say I'm a father, yeah. And so if I was a dad in a conflict zone, it's so extreme that going into complete depression is a possibility. But if I'm a dad, it's not a possibility anymore. I have to be my best to assure that the most possible safety for my family. So that means to me, take care of myself. And so that means grounding and have the most chances to be a balanced human being. That means exercising, because I am the pharmacy and I can create all the different chemicals like dopamine, like all those incredible chemicals to bring health to myself. I would go to the circadian rhythm, meaning if possible, I would go to bed when the night sets after sunset, and I would rise with the sun to find equilibrium naturally with nature. I would do all those things. And I've even seen, like in Gaza, at some point, people were growing food, lettuce, and so I would do my best to connect with nature. I would go back to the basics to be able to be committed to myself and my health, and to give the best to my family and the community around me, which is challenging, but what else can you do? What is that seems like to be the best possible thing to do. Instead of being depressed, I would charge myself with all those natural ways to be at my best and give my best.
There's a lot of feeling of helplessness and powerlessness. Even now, listening to you, like in some of these things are not really possible right now, whether it's in Gaza or in Israel, or some places in Israel, some places in the West Bank. I'm wondering, part of it is like part of the motto that we say is like, if we can activate peace inside of us, we will be able to activate peace outside. Can you say more about that? How can we deal with this feeling of helplessness and powerlessness and still feel like I am the pharmacy and I'm able to take care of myself and the family when everything around me is taken away?
I would, one of the best, I don't know if I could call it that way, but weapon is my authenticity. I'd be authentic about how I feel. For me, health and peace and trauma even is always a juggling act of finding balance. So every situation has its challenges or extreme challenges, and within that, I have to find balance. So being authentic about how I feel. If I need to let out and cry at some point, maybe because I lost one of my son, I can't repress such emotions. And so it's a very difficult thing to say, but I would try to find a space privately with a beloved or with a loved one to let go of those emotions. We cannot live with repression all the time. So authenticity is one of the highest energy. And so I would first be authentic with myself, with my emotions, and then find balance in any way possible. In places that are so sometimes even devoid of nature, we have to go really, really deep inside. The nature, the peace outside cannot be found without having the peace inside. And so the challenge here and the necessity is to find peace inside in whatever way it takes, whatever way it means. And it can sometimes be very individual how to find peace.
It's interesting because in many of our conversation or gathering, I remember a couple of people said that they never felt peace. Actually, they didn't know what's the texture of peace even. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, can you speak to that? How does peace feel like? How would peace feel like for you?
Again, I think it's a feeling. So if I'm very anxious all the time, it's very difficult to find peace. So I would have to touch on death, actually. Death and anxiety. One of the things that would be the most difficult for me would be to detach myself, like death, going very deep into my own death and being okay with it. When I found problem is that I have children, and so death became an attachment to my children. And so I have to, in this case, even go into the fact that everything is orchestrated and that I'm an eternal soul. And so that helps me find peace at the end. When I am able to go down to this death feeling, it helps me appease myself. And that's where I find peace, that everything is meant for a reason, that my soul is growing eternally, and that what is happening to me serves a higher purpose. And even in a war, in any case, it's for my soul to grow. And so that's where I would go, is to find peace with my death, understanding that I'm an undying soul, but death with my body. And then as far as anxiety, the anxiety lodges in the stomach, underneath like the sternum, underneath the ribs. So one can take the fist and push here. And that's where anxiety lodges. And breathe, lay down and push and breathe and breathe. And I've done that with patient in doing bodywork sessions. And somebody that seems totally fine, when I push there, will maybe completely open and go into crying and not being able to stop for a while. And then they come out of it, and I don't talk to them through the process. I just maybe tell them, continue breathing, and I caress their forehead so that they can find their vulnerability. And when that can happen, they find peace after that. They find peace like they haven't had for maybe years. So there are ways to find peace with the body again.
Okay, yeah.
The body is where it's at. So the emotions get stored in the body, and we can, by curiosity is incredible. Be curious, I would say to everybody, be curious on the ways. There are many ways to find peace. Somebody can find peace with a cat, and petting the cat and loving the cat and feel love in exchange. Peace also has to do with community, I find, and giving to the community. And then it comes back naturally again, so I found that there are many ways.
Yeah, peace is not the absence of conflict. I think
No.
that's really important. Peace is not the absence of conflict, and peace is something that is cultivated and practiced on a daily basis. And
Yes.
I really love what you're saying around our sovereignty in our body, because if there's something that we can control, is controlling our body and having the discipline to be with our body, to be with the emotion. What I hear you say is really this ability to be authentic and vulnerable already with myself, and then providing that safe space for other to be authentic and vulnerable in a space that is free of judgment. And I find what I've found for the past couple of years is like there's so many judgment on how we feel, how the other person feel, what we say, what the other person say. And the field is so polluted, and that's what we need to clean. It's really the field out there beyond right doing and wrongdoing. There's a field, and I kind of feel like in this field when the bodies are healthy and are able to we are able to take care of our own bodies, then the field is not contaminated with blame, shame, and guilt, and so many judgments.
Yoga is a really, really big system, and yet there are a few pauses that can calm people. The breath is excellent. The breath is your best friend for life. So learning how to use the breath, and sounding, when I sound it reverberates around my chest, my heart region. Not only the heart, the organ, but the heart chakra. The heart that is at the center of my being as far as the chakras, so the breath and sounding, is an amazing tool. And again, it will slow down, the heartbeat. It will calm my mind, because the mind will be filled with oxygen. Those natural things. Again, I love this. I am my own pharmacy. My thoughts, when I'm appeased, I'm well. The anxiety, the dis-ease, anxiety creates dis-ease in the body. So all of that comes from the mind, but yet is related to the heart, related to the breath, related to the anxiety, and how I can appease my anxiety by doing certain things, like yoga, like breathing, like going into nature,
And
like restoring my... And dancing. Dancing is
that's your medicine. Can you say
yeah.
more on that?
So let's say I go it's called Dance Church. So here I go and to Dance Church every Sunday, and it's called ecstatic dance, where there's a flow. It starts slow, and so you can be in touch with your body. And I start breathing, and I start letting go, and then let's say the DJ will go into a different cycle of like a different beat of music where it gets more alive, and then so I start to breathe deeper, and I get in touch with what I call my primal being, my primal dance, into a primal movement. And I move in certain ways that I would not usually move in life. We're very forward motion type of beings. So there I move in different ways and I activate different parts of my body, and then I breathe at the same time. So emotions will come up. Sometimes I feel angry and maybe I will shout, while I'm dancing, while I'm breathing, in some emotions that I don't have to identify. That's the gift too. I don't have to identify my emotions, then not to become intellectual, So like, for example, French people, I'm French originally. French people are very mental, very intellectual, and they're very seldom into their bodies. And then they love to argue. That's what I remember. I didn't know why, but when I left France when I was 20, then I understood that the reason why I was not feeling well at the time is that people were arguing about my own feelings, even. And that always blew my mind. How can I argue about your feelings? Your feelings are your own. And if I can do something amazing, it would be to listen to them. And I don't have to judge your feelings. There's nothing to judge. It's your feelings. So yes, the way to come down from the judgment, from the anxiety, from the voices that are in the agitation is to dance for me, is to really give my body this amazing tool to go into movements. On top of that, with music, to change my mind and to bring my mind down into my body. And then the movements and the breath will let go of the emotions that are then trapped in the body, in the fascia. The fascia is something for those that eat chicken. You will see that part that's very hard, that the fascia bundles the muscles. It's elastic. So that tells you something about the emotion and the elasticity. Somebody that doesn't do movements for their spine regularly will be rigid and will be more rigid in their minds, because they don't have necessarily the ability to let go. It's all connected. It's holistic. That's why I say peace is holistic. Peace is rich. Peace is many things to see what for any individual brings that person into balance.
Of that peace is balance.
I would say I find peace when I feel balanced.
Is there anything else that you would like to share in this podcast?
I would say peace is the journey. Peace is a journey, and peace is their journey. That's why we're here, is to find peace. And we won't necessarily find it out of ourselves. It's inside. The only way is in, the only way is through. Yeah. So I can look for it in the rest of the world, and obviously it doesn't. We're at a point where we've been so out of ourselves in this era that now we need to understand that peace is within, and that's the place to find it. And then sometimes it is mirrored by the outside. Sometimes, and that's wonderful. And it's often the result of when I feel it in myself. I don't know if, like, I've even had times where after dancing, the colors, the acuity of what I see through my eyes is different. Everything like changes. I feel more love. It's because there's been like some work that's happened. Or when I go to nature, things appease themselves because the colors, because of the fractals that I see. And that's the result of balance, of nature, of my own nature, feeling good, at peace.
Beautiful, Fabrice. Thank you.
My pleasure, really.
Where can people find you?
I have a website called eyeswithin.me. Eyeswithin.me. Yes. Or on YouTube as well. And you will find
in the description. We put all that in the description.
Yes. And then you'll find like exercises like the 5 Tibetan rites, that has to do with the spine and strengthening, and other videos on being vulnerable and finding peace as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Fabrice.
Avec plaisir.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, for feeling, and for holding space with us. If this episode moved you, please support the Peace is Possible podcast by subscribing, sharing it with friends, or posting it online. Every ripple counts. We'll be back next month with another conversation that dives deep into what it truly means to activate peace within and around us. To support the vision behind Peace Activation, visit peaceactivation.org and follow along on social media. You'll find both Peace Activation and me, Eva Dalak, across all platforms. Until next time, may you meet yourself and others with peace.